There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Give me a minute to get set up here. All right, so let's get started. So, as some of you know, I've been working on the Rodin coil and trying to replicate some of the experiments done by Daniel and Erica Nunez of First Stop Energies. And just to demonstrate real quick, here I have a traditionally wound coil, and then here I have another traditional coil, an inductive pad for wireless charging. This goes along with a resonant circuit, but as you can see, for the geometry on these, they're not choosing the path of least resistance. With the Rodin coil applying vortex math, this isn't a practical design. This is just for demonstration, but as you can see, it's more of a toroid shape with an interference pattern to achieve the over unity effect. So with my coil design, I found that there was a few mistakes being made, common mistakes that I think prevented people from achieving the over unity. And, some people have, the Rodin coil working with the low end frequencies and getting the sphere to, do interesting things. But in my opinion, from my experience with the coil, there's a few mistakes that people make that I believe if you correct, you can produce the over unity effect, which is you have to have multiple wires, multiple windings, multiple turns. You also have to have the channels separated, so you have to have at least 2 channels. And the third mistake is the most common one I see is you have to have the wires all tightly bundled, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what I use is an electric screwdriver, and I just take a couple of hinges, rope them up however many turns you want. For this coil I have 24, and you just take it, put it in the screwdriver, tighten it up, and twist it, and they have to be tightly packed and twisted. And that allows for the magnetic fields to basically amplify and compress on top of one another in an efficient way. And with my coil design and my system, you'll see in a minute, it does achieve more output than input. It's obviously putting out more energy than it's taking in. I have 2 circuits hooked up, one on the output, one on the input. And it's the same exact circuit, same exact components. It's a 3 to 6 volt fan with a little rectifier circuit, 4 diodes, and I believe it's a 50 volt capacitor, 100 UF, and excuse me. I also have 3 white LEDs, standard Arduino kit LEDs, hooked up to in series, hooked up to a 2 ohm resistor. and that's duplicated on the input and the output. Now I'm using a stereo receiver, and I'm using the same exact stereo receiver that Daniel Nunes uses in some of his experiments. It's a Insignia NS2001, and it's a surround sound system, so it has channel A, channel B. So I'm using left. You can use right if you want. The positive and negative from channel A left, and I'm also using channel B, which is not hooked up to the coil, but it's a stereo amp receiver. It's supposed to be outputting, and it is outputting the same amount of power to each channel because it's made for speakers. So you should be able to see, and you can see the difference between the same components being powered on the input, which is a 2-to-1 ratio on the voltage while maintaining the current, and in the output, the fan is obviously spinning at max RPM, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute as well. But I just wanted to go over some of the science behind it, my setup, and some of the results that I've been seeing are very positive. My multimeter just came in. I have a second multimeter. The amp is still blown. I don't have a backup amp for that one, but we can read current with the new multimeter. So I should be able to show you indefinitely that we have achieved over unity. Now, to what degree is debatable. I have people online, specifically in the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project Discord channel, who are very contestant. Understandably, they want verifiable evidence. I'm very limited in my resources. As you'll see, I have a very tiny setup here. But baby steps. Phase 2, we'll move out the system into a portable design where we can try to extend a battery, or maybe turn a 9-volt battery into a 12-volt battery type thing. So very exciting things happening in the future. But right now, I'm going to set up the system and show you a couple of interesting things. I'm running the camera on my laptop, so bear with me. I will get closer to the system. Just want to show you an overview of how it works first, and then I can show you the close-ups. But I am working with an integrated camera on the laptop, so bear with me on the camera angles and all that stuff. Why doesn't the PoE advanced vortex coil not twist the wires? Curious, just... Oh, so that is an interesting question. So when you look at the advanced PoE design by Daniel Nunes and from First Stop Energies, their advanced design, they were trying to figure out, okay, so we need a manufactured way to evenly space these wires. So think of like a VGA cable, how they're paired and evenly spaced to prevent like EMF interference and all that stuff. So what their idea was, when you individually, you just leave enough space in the vortex coil frame for one wire set So you evenly space them on top of one another, and you can shape the geometry of the magnetic field more evenly that way. So you don't have these imperfections like you see on my coil. There's all these, slight bends and imperfections that are preventing it from running at optimum maximum output, pretty much. And it's kind of my theory that maybe that's the reason why I can't get the open circuit to work, which is the what I call the Nunez method. It is a method that they use to generate the 10 times voltage output, very high voltage outputs. But then again, I haven't done anything outside the stereo setup. I haven't even used my workbench yet because I'm still working on getting a proper tone generator. Right now, the stereo setup acts as a tone generator because I can input the frequencies from the phone. So as you'll see in a minute, the system works as conventional science says outside of the resonant range. When you have it like 20 to 200, 300 hertz, the output voltage is clearly lower. The output current is slightly low. Everything is showing a loss as expected. This fan on the input, it's spinning faster than the fan on the output. But when you tune into the resonant range, as you'll see in a minute, it switches. And it's wild. So right now I'm going to show you the over unity with the resonant range being around, I think I'm going to put it around 1 kilohertz, because if I tune it in too much and I read the current, it will blow my fuse again, and I don't have a backup fuse to use. So, and I'd really like to show you the current and the voltage. So. So this is the stereo receiver. Channel A is going to channel A in the Rodin coil, which is the red and the black wires right here. The input is red, or the start is red, the finish is black. And it's not connected to channel B, which is the yellow and the green. And as you can see, the yellow and the green are hooked up to the output. And this multimeter right here, we're not pumping any frequency into the system at the moment, but it is. Let's see, let's turn it on. All right, so let's see if I can get the good angle here for you. Right now, we're going to pump 20 hertz, and then we're going to do, 200, 300, and I'm going to show you how, as we increase the frequency, it'll tune in and then switch on the output. All right, we got some movement on this side. I don't know if you guys can see it yet. The fan is spinning on this side right here. Yeah, some PoE coils are twisted. I mean, You can get a good effect with twisted, and you can get a good effect with the advanced design as long as it's symmetrical. I mean, there are different designs for coils that produce different effects, but this is the way that I did it, and I copied their PLE vortex design, which is straight out of the video that Erica Nunez made. The twist must be incremental for accurate scalar flow. As a result, the utilization of fractal coils bear scalar improvements. Yeah, I'm not really sure what that means. I'm just a layman, but I'll definitely look into that. Scalar waves is something I'm not quite versed on, but I will be looking into that in the future. All right, so we're pumping 20 hertz. You can see 2.2 volts on the input, 0.4 volts on the output. The lights are kind of blinking on the output circuit, but the fan's not going, as expected. And this is just barely going because this is rated, again, 3 volts to 6 volts. So at 6 volts, it should run max RPM, and it does. And you will see that's kind of like a clear indicator of how much power is coming on the output versus the input. So this is, okay, we're going to increase this to, let's say, 200. Oh, let me show you the current real quick. Let me just show you the current. It's this one. That, bring this closer. So that is the current, 0.059 amps. .059 amps on the output. That's the current. .321 on the input. .321. So obviously we're getting a loss as expected. Switch that back to volts so I don't accidentally blow another fuse. All right. So we're going to increase it to, what did I say, 200 hertz? Let me turn the brightness down. That actually might help for you. See this a little better. Yeah. So that's at 20 right now. We're using square waveform. We're going to increase that to 200. Please remember about strange radiation with scale of waves. You must be very careful. Yes, when I plan to do high voltage experiments, I will be doing them outside in a vented area. They're not going to be in this closed environment here. That's one of the main reasons I didn't want to do something like that, because I knew it wouldn't be safe in a small lab like this. Plus the fact that all these imperfections, this thing's probably going to produce a lot of ozone. That's not funny. Please remember, strong borax barrier is helpful when dampening strange radiation, but only distance provides. Yes, as they teach us in density class for nuclear density gauges, which is what I do for my profession. I'm a nuclear density technician. You know, it's time, distance, and exposure. So. All right, so as you can see, the voltage increased a little bit because when we increase the frequency, it's going to push the energy a little bit more, make it oscillate a little bit more. On the input, might be actually better to turn these off, but on the input, you see we increased a little bit. 2.3 volts AC on the input. And then we have 1.6 on the output. And now I'm about to show you something crazy. We're going to start getting into the range where this thing starts producing some crazy effects in terms of energy production. I want to turn down the gain a little bit so we don't have the fan spinning on the output. Okay. So it's a clear, so I can show you visually. People love a good visual. You know, you can show somebody numbers on a board all day, but what they really want to see is something visual that they can, something that they can see working with their own eyes. So we are going to increase this to, let's just go to 1K. All right, now look at this. look at this. Look at this. This is, I can't cuss on this because YouTube, this is insane, right? 3.1 volts, and I could show you the current. It's maintaining or even increasing, depending on the how tuned you're in on the output, the current. But 3.1 volts on the output, and the input is 1.8. This fan isn't spinning. The lights aren't on at all. At all. This is wild. And I've unhooked everything. I've analyzed everything. I've hooked it back up together. It's not an anomaly. It's not the multimeters. I've tested the multimeters. I've calibrated them. There's really no way you can hook up the multimeters to be wrong and right at the same time like that, in that way, and have the components reflect the same numbers in terms of how much energy is actually going into a circuit and powering a load. This is nuts. Look at this. Okay, so 3.1 volts. This fan is clearly spinning faster. Well, actually, the input's not spinning at all right now. So this is spinning clearly faster than the input. The lights are on. This one, it's not being powered at all. I mean, I could turn up the gain a little bit, and you could see it will be powered, because obviously when I turn up the gain, the input power is going to go up as well. But then the output will reflect that. So let me show you the current. I don't want to turn up too much because, again, don't want to blow another fuse. I don't have them here, the backups here yet. So we're getting about 320 milliamps. .320322, something like that, milliamps. I know it's really hard. Bear with the camera. I'm gonna get better equipment soon. Make sure if you wanna see me get that sooner, you can also donate. Small donations really help out the channel and help me get equipment. So this is 320 milliamps on the output. That's the current. And then we switch it to the volts. 3.1 volts on the output. And now let's show you the input. Well, you know the input's 1.8. This one's accurate, it just doesn't have a fuse. So the input voltage is 1.8. Clearly not enough voltage to power a 3 to 4 volt or 3 to 6 volt DC motor while, you know, still connected to 3 LEDs. And we're going to show you the current input. Remember, we've got 320 milliamps on the output. $172 milliamps on the input. You see this? 0.17 on the input. What the frack? I'm not sure. Let's check the oh wait, yeah, we have to do that while it's off. I could check the impedance for you. I thought it was around 9. Yeah, 7 or 9, something like that. But yeah, we can do a test during the stream for sure. We're gonna run some tests on it. We're gonna do some cool stuff for sure. But this is really exciting for me because I've been working on this project for a while. Like, and 90% of me was sure that Daniel was telling the truth. But there was always that, you know, that 10% in the back of my head thinking, you know, like, this might not work, or, you know, I'm not smart enough to figure. Holy crap. Holy crap. Oh, FYI, this reminds me, I do have the guide up in the description of this video. Be sure to know what you're doing, though, and you're comfortable or you're a professional, because you're comfortable around high voltage equipment, because this coil can potentially be very dangerous to work with. I'm trying to do the safest experiments I can while I can, but just be safe and take the proper precautions. Wear your PPE, especially when working with the low-end frequency range, the neodymium sphere. I always wear a helmet. I don't know if it's gonna, I'm gonna get the thing wrong and it's gonna fly through the roof of my apartment. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't worked the impedance out yet. But again, that's something that we can test the resistance and all that when the coil's powered off. Right now, phase 2 is going to be exciting for me, but it's a little bit more challenging because I'm studying to be an electrical engineer, but I'm not an electrical engineer. So developing the circuit necessary to get this thing running without the stereo and just like on a like a 9-volt battery is going to be somewhat challenging, but it's not impossible. And I do have a group of inventors and free thinkers who are willing to give me help, and that is much appreciated. Yes, yes, and I believe that if you have enough passion, you can pretty much do anything you can set your mind to, because when you're obsessed with something, you're obsessed with course correcting. You're not concerned with how the optics look politically, or how you might be perceived. You just care about the outcome, the results, right? And you don't care about being wrong, because everybody's wrong. And course correcting is the process of fixing your mistakes and trying to improve on your process. And that's something that I actually pride myself in, making a lot of mistakes. Once you read the amp draw, you have all that. Yeah, yeah. And but again, there were some, there's some backlash. Obviously, a couple of people want me to, like, do certain things and run very complicated and expensive circuits that I don't know how to run, to prove something that I think I just proved indefinitely, especially visually with the circuits here. If you want, I can show you the back of the receiver. It's, this is not hooked up. This is not hooked up to the coil at all. It's outputting channel B, which is the rear speaker set. So we know that that's what's inputting into the coil, because we can pretend this is, our rear speaker. This is our front speaker. The stereo, it's not its job to adjust the volume for the rear and the front. It outputs the same power. It's the user who's supposed to adjust that for their entertainment and their tweaking, So if the system is working correctly, which it is, and I've tested it, these two channels are going to be outputting the same power, which they do. And I don't care what anybody says at this point. We are achieving over unity. Now, how much is debatable. I don't know exactly how accurate my multimeters are, but I've tested them to the best of my abilities at the frequency ranges that I could, and they are pretty damn accurate as far as the ranges that I'm using them in. Now, anything higher in the megahertz range, I have no idea. I haven't tested that high yet. I don't have a setup for that at the moment. I have 370 ohm coil under 26 volts. It draws 70 milliamps. So but Mike, do you notice any kind of over unity effect? Like, are you seeing, when you put anything into the coil, are you seeing the same or maintaining the same current? Like, what are your numbers? Stereo will only give you 5 volts when you have the knob. Yeah, so the stereo, well, my stereo receiver is rated for 50 volts, but still, and especially when you're like something that I didn't consider, and this is interesting because there's a lot of different variables to consider now that we have over unity, such as the thing keeps on shutting down, and I'm like, what? Why does it keep on shutting down? I'm only at like 40 on the gain because I'm trying to pump up, put it a little bit more juice. It goes up to 63, right? And when I put it, use it normally, put a normal frequency, or actually use the tone generator at all, it'll go up to 60 before it shuts down, right? So I can put it on the resonant range of 1 hertz. It'll go up to 60 without the coil hooked up. But as soon as I put the coil, it'll only go up to about 40. And I'm like, what? Why does it keep shutting down? Because it's outputting more, and it's coming back into the system, overloading, overheating it. It's not meant to take in that much. I didn't know anything about electric theory when my coils lived. Wow, I play guitar, so I was a sound engineer. I knew minimum stuff to diagnose or repair. Right, that's the thing. When you're just tinkering, you're not like formally trained, and you might have gaps in your education. Sometimes it's hard to recreate what you did, and you don't know what you did. Like I called that the Hutchinson effect. But yeah, so that's important. It's important to document everything you're doing, and even if it seems insignificant, every little detail is important. Let's turn these off for now without monitoring, saving battery. So how did you get your coil to levitate? Like, what was your process? That's fascinating. Magnets and iron. Wide circumference coil can drive a wide magnet with large mass. Okay. A big surface area. Flywheel enhanced rotate magnet large. Joseph Newman. Hey, I got something to show you. Okay, so I have a rare addition to the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices, and it has some amazing chapters, least of which is a chapter on Joseph Newman and his magnetic motor and some of his theories. And it has a couple of breakdowns that I'd like to take some pictures of later and upload, because I was talking to some people on Crypto Alchemist podcast, and some of the work that they're doing with the magnet motors, I think could benefit from this knowledge that's in this book. It's incredible. Some of the stuff, and this is like one of the rare latest editions. I think there was only 2 copies on Amazon. I grabbed one of them. There might be another one if somebody wants to grab it. I don't know if it's still out there, but it talks about like bubble cavitation, and submarines and boats experience this on the propellers. And the vortex forces from the propeller cavitates the bubbles every once in a while, and it kind of like puts, like, it doesn't just put dents in the propeller, it eats little holes in the propeller, because obviously cavitation is going to be forming a plasmoid structure, and those have a tendency to kind of explode and dissolve away elements. I don't know. There's no real better way to describe it. They transmutate stuff into different stuff. I used a pencil to locate bad parts by the follow Eric Dollard. Yes, I've heard of Eric Dollard. I haven't looked into him too much, but he is on my radar. Let me see if I can find this chapter on Joseph Newman for you. All right, give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to try to find this for you. All right, I found it. So this copy they sent me is unbound. I'll try to put the pictures or the pages up. Why is my camera like that? Oh, there we go. That's better. So the copy they sent me is unbound, so I can actually, show you these pictures or the pages like this. And I've already gone through here, and I'll just read the highlights that I've highlighted here. Some interesting things from this practical guide to free energy devices, which was put together by some really amazing people. And I don't know who they are. They're referenced in the book, but I'm not familiar with them. But there are some incredible people, and hands out to them for this book. So here we have Joseph Newman. This is our chapter in the book on Joseph. So it does recommend that you buy a copy of his book. I haven't read it. I don't know what it's called. It doesn't reference it. But in a very brief outline, Joseph has built a motor which can access free energy. He has a theory about where the excess energy is coming from and how it is acquired by his designs. He has also built a large stationary motor to demonstrate his theory, and he has built a motor into his car. Shut that off. The car engine runs on very minor battery power, so like an over unity effect like you see here in my system, but probably on a larger scale. Mine is, I think, finely tuned. We got it to about 155% efficiency, which is incredible, but it's still not enough to like recharge a battery and have it just recharge itself indefinitely into the. It's not going to be perpetual because the components will eventually wear out, and circuitry degrades and all that stuff. So that would be irresponsible to tell you that it's going to last forever. It won't, but it will be an extension and let you get a little bit more out than what you're putting in. Something that nature does all the time. Let's see, I have troubleshooted over 500 breaker panels installed, about same count, another 5. Hey Charles, how you doing? We're just going over some Joseph Newman. I'm gonna go over some of the highlights of his chapter here. I think I have it a little out of order. Let's see. And show you a couple of the pictures and illustrations that go along with it. So here we see the first diagram of one of his designs. And please let me know if, because it's hard for me to tell if you can see this. I'm doing the best I can here, so just in chat, if you're having a hard time seeing something, just say, hey, like show me this real quick, or you can't see it. But this is the first diagram of his magnetic motor. Orient the coil spherically is the gravinductor. Most of the time, breakers are going bad. Yeah, components wear out, and that's, unfortunate, but there is no such thing as a perpetual motion machine as we've seen it, just because of the materials we've seen wear out. You might be able to solve the over unity problem, but did you solve the material science problem? Right? Material science is something we're kind of lacking right now, in my opinion. All right, so here we have an interesting diagram. So I'm going to read you the little captions and show you the pictures one by one. In this interesting, the next interesting point is that if the wire loop is moved up and down between the magnets, but turned to be parallel to the flux flowing between the poles, then no current flows in the wire, no matter how quickly the wire is moved up and down. So that's like a reverse Lenz law effect, if I'm not mistaken, right? And that's the first diagram here. In the second diagram, it says another point is that if the wire loop is moved slowly up through the magnetic flux, the electric current which flows as the result of that slow movement moves at the speed of light, flowing from A to B. And then you'll see figure B. This one. In the part that I have highlighted, I must have found interesting for some reason. I don't remember the exact details, but let's recall together. It says, this shows that the direction of the current flow is not affected by the wire itself. Okay, yeah, so I must have been interested in the Lenz law effect. According to conventional teachings, this electric current flow was not a result of the magnetic field, as the magnetic lines of force were supposed to be imaginary, consisting of potential energy and no kinetic energy. And this is a big problem, because we're imagining these magnetic fields as being lines of force, and they're not lines of force. They're more of lines of current or spirals of current. You have this is my theory. I know some might disagree, but you have the magnet, which has the North Pole, which is essentially inflow, and then a South Pole, which is essentially outflow, and it is acting as two pressure differentials for radiant energy to flow from one to the other. That's what a magnet is, and that's why it has such force. Because if you look at my video that explained, Fractal Lady in the video explains the analogy of current and the ether being a fluid. And if you spin two cylinders in a pool of water the same direction, they're going to spin up the opposing current, and they will oppose each other. And that's why magnets oppose north-north poles. But if you take the opposing directions, they will produce the same current. The current will go in the same direction, meaning it will suck the two cylinders together. But you're not just talking about the force, the pressure differential of the fluid of water. We're talking about the ether, which is magnitudes more strong. So that's why you have them snap together. And then if you pulse a magnet, you can calculate, and this is in the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices. If you pulse a magnet and calculate the amount of energy it takes to pulse that magnet compared to the number of years it can sustain itself in its own weight in gravity, you clearly have more energy out than you put into it. And I think that's something that we kind of forget or ignore, or maybe mainstream science just doesn't want to look at that. It's too inconvenient. Snap. Rule I follow: if the plug is issued, new one, same for switches and breakers. I use 100% recycled. I haven't a penny to. Yeah. When you don't have a lot of money to spend on these experiments, it's it's like you got one shot to wind this coil, and a while ago I had one shot to wind the coil, and I did up. So I had to order double the amount of wire just in case I screwed it up again. I wanted to be prepared, but it's expensive, or it can get expensive. This is honestly the guide that I have for the coil is the most inexpensive setup you will see. You probably pay like maybe $70 to $100 for the coil frame, depending on who you go with to print it, what kind of material you're talking about printing it, and whatever, and what size it is. And the most you'll be spending on is probably the multimeters and the actual enameled wire. That's expensive because the amount of footage that you have to use. We're using 12 winds per channel, so I had to go out in the backyard and have my girlfriend sit there so people, because I'm in an apartment complex, I can't have children walking by while I measure out a 50-foot measure of wire and getting hurt. So, make sure you have proper space to do that. I'm limited, but, there was really no other choice that I had. So I did it the best way I could, and it requires a little bit of tinkering, a little bit of tenacious effort, but with a little bit of tinkering, I'm sure any garage engineer can whip up what I whipped up right here, and possibly maybe more. Like I will be having a challenge at some point this year. We'll see who can make the most efficient Rodin coil system. I think that will be fun. Um, you know, I'll put my hat in as well. This one is a good proof of concept, but I think I could do better. I think I could do way better. All right, so let's continue with Joseph Newman. All right, so according to conventional teachings, this electric current flow is not the result of magnetic field, as the magnetic lines of force were supposed to be imaginary, right? Remember we said we're not thinking of magnets as in terms of magnetic imaginary lines of force. We're thinking about them as spirals of current, spiraling from one pressure differential on a magnet to the other. It became clear to Joseph that this conventional teaching was wrong. Instead, it seemed clear that the magnetic field consisted of particles which have mechanical characteristics, and those particles must be moving at the speed of light within the magnetic field. It's spinning up the fluid ether. That might be what he's talking about. The magnets are spinning up the fluid ether, and you have radiant energy flowing from one to the other, one pole to the other. And I mean, this is my theory, and on how the coil is working is when you constrict one of those, the inflow, you have nowhere for the energy to return to, or you have less room for the energy to return to and convert back into the ether. So you have an abundance release of radiant energy into the system that runs parallel to the magnetic flux, which should, in theory, since it penetrates everything, enhance the system some way. I'm still kind of fuzzy on that. North side of the arm coil, yeah. Best spin angle at 90 degrees. Yeah, later when I show you the neodymium test, the magnetic synchronicity test, because I'm going to be doing some testing tonight with that specifically to see if we can get it fully synchronized. I almost got it synchronized, but I'm thinking maybe the neodymium sphere might be a little bit too big, but we'll see. We'll see. So if you stick around, we'll do some cool, fun experiments with that as well. I'm sure that'll be fun. Suppose you have the coil arms resting vertical. Um, I'm not sure. I understand. You mean, are you talking about having like a rotary? Because what I was thinking about doing was putting a rotary motor on top with some magnets. Oh, you're talking about the orientation. Yeah. Yeah, and those are good rules of thumb to remember when you're trying to engineer something specific. Right now, I'm not trying to engineer anything specific to that calibration just yet, but that will be good to know for future projects for sure. Because this, and just a disclaimer, this and all my guide and all this technology is not to be patented, is not to make money off of. It is solely for scientific research and educational purposes only, and that's not my choice. That's something I'm saying because I want you guys to be safe. The last people who tried to make money off of this, I haven't been able to get in contact with them, and I'm sure they're fine. But I think they were sued and had a gag order put and had a whole bunch of pressure put on them, and I don't want to get into it, but I want you guys to be safe. So don't, whatever you do, don't try to patent it or make money off of it. That's all I got to say. Just have fun with the science, learn the science, have fun with the maybe educate people like I'm doing. Because as you know, educating people, you in the process learn yourself. So there's really no better way to teach yourself something than to teach yourself how to teach it. How to relay something in the most simplest terms that a child could understand is really the epitome of understanding that you want to be at. The apex of epiphany, as it were. Mic and sound better without that. Does You said my mic sounds better? Yeah, the so right now I'm using the HyperX. When I was on the podcast, I disconnected it, and it might have switched over to the internal mic, which was probably crap. What's up, Ed? Hey, what's up, old man builds? It's good to see you guys. Yeah, it's good to see Tammy. It's good to see you. Wow, everybody's here. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun night, right? Let's have some experiments with the Rodin coil. Let's learn some science. John Hutchinson. Yeah. So unfortunately, we got the news that John Hutchinson a few days ago had a little spell. We didn't know if he was gonna make it, but he's fine now. But just keep him in your prayers. Good intentions, good thoughts, good prayers for John Hutchinson. Let's hope that he makes a speedy recovery. He is one of my heroes personally. I would love to do an interview with John, to hang out with him, to talk about some of his experiences. I know he at this point he probably just wants to be left alone, but he is an absolute legend to me. Yeah, the whole group is here. What's up, guys? Hey, so while everybody's here, we need everybody to drop their emails or contact emails in chat so we can get in contact with each other because we need to network and help each other out with our projects. I have some really good chapters in here that you guys from the podcast I think would really benefit from, and I'd like to take pictures and send to you guys for your own projects because this book has really helped me out a great deal, and I don't have the time to photograph 5 volumes of this fat book, but the specifics I've gone through, some specifics I can send you, and as I go through, I'll continue to update everybody. But I did find some chapters that I think you guys will find very interesting and helpful. Um, yeah, we were talking about Joseph Newman. We kind of got off track here. So if you're just joining us, we were talking about Joseph Newman, his magnetic motor. We were going over some of his theories on how he got his device to work. As you can see, I have some highlights here that I'd like to go over just real quick before we get into something else. Yeah, where's Corky? Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be streaming for a while, so maybe he'll drop by at some point. Hopefully, it would be nice to see him. He would love to see this. Oh no, what happened to Lenny? I had Lenny up there on the Steam Deck. He disappeared. So yeah, my computer crashed. I'm used to producing highly produced videos. I take time into editing the scripts and making sure everything is accurate and is entertaining as well as educational. But my computer took a crap on me, and I built the computer so I could easily replace parts, but it was the solid state drive that it just wasn't being detected by the motherboard, and I took it to somebody. He said it could have been the controller. Sent it out to a specialist. They did say it was a controller, and they said they couldn't fix it. So that's unfortunate. I'm gonna have to redo a lot of. Thank God I had a lot of the text research backed up, but a lot of the video clips and video archiving that I've done over the past year or so of all the cool clips that I have, like John Hutchison, the Searle effect, the vacuum triode amplifier from Floyd Sweet. All those cool clips and relevant clips were all organized in a very big archive that is unfortunately lost to time now. I have to start all over. Um, but it is not a sad day. It is a bright day. We have the Rodin coil working at 155% efficiency, and we know exactly how. Well, I know exactly how I built it, so I could put that, and I did put that in a guide for you to try to replicate. And it's nothing new. It's something that I was just doing everything that others have done. I listened to Danielle Nunez, and I believe that if you are interested in making your own coils, you'll find the same results. Oh, sorry about that. I'm about to go to a quick intermission, so I can go to the bathroom real quick and all that. But if you guys have anything that you'd like to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll be right back. All right. Appreciate you guys bearing with me on the intermission. Thanks for stopping by again. Let's see. Let's catch up on the chat. I have the math, not on any program, but got no experience with 3D programs. Yeah, I don't. I have very minor experience with 3D programs. I do have some, but not as an artist. I might be able to help you out or point in the right direction, but I'm not too well versed on the new technology. Last time I used something like that was 3D Studio Max back in like 2004. I was I was 12 years old. 12 years old on a old what was it? Pentium. Yeah, it's an old computer editing on a cracked version of 3D Studio Max, rendering videos and stuff. That was years ago. Yeah, the electrolysis is another experiment I'd like to run with the coil. I'm not really sure if I've um, determined or come to terms with how I'd actually set that up at this point. There's a couple of different ways I'd like to like explore, but that is definitely on my radar. So there was this. I wonder if I could find it. There was this guy who had this invention that could boil water with just sound, and I'm not sure if it actually. I think it had a little bit of power pumped into it, maybe just for like the tone. But it apparently you'd put it in a cup of water and it would boil, just with the geometry of it. Which based on my research now, like asked me that like 5 years ago, and I'd be like, yeah, that's crazy. Now I'm like, there might be something to that. So right. Let's see. Where's the pages on? Okay. So let's pick up. So we'll just close off with the Joseph Newman. There's a couple of really cool points that I have highlighted here that I think you guys would find very interesting from this practical guide to free energy devices that I have. And again, there are different different editions of this because it's been published and republished and edited over the years. This is the most recent copy that I could find. It is the rarest edition. There was only 2 of these on Amazon. I grabbed one. If anybody wants one, there might be the second one. As I said before, it's very useful if you're doing anything in the realm of what I'm doing, trying to find viable options for free energy. If you follow my channel, I talk about the suppression and the history of these devices, and I determined a while ago that there's got to be some viable options out there. Not all of them are probably going to be viable. Some of them might not work, but let's test some. But let's I had to learn some of the theory first so I could determine which ones sound like they might be viable. And the Rodin coil was the first one, and ironically that was the first one that Daniel and Nunez and Erica Nunez jumped to. They had the same process, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, that's where I got the idea to looking up the Practical Guide to Free Energy. I believe, because they're self-taught, I believe that they mentioned in one of their videos that they did get one of the editions, and they determined that the Vortex coil was the most viable, easy to manufacture proof of concept for over unity. I want to see 40 volts and 1 amp in the coil and put it in a bipolar coil. Yeah, there's all sorts of experiments I'd love to do. And trust me, we'll get into all the experiments as long as I can do them safely. I am working on getting a house. That's going to take some time, but when I have a house, I'll have a proper setup for a bigger lab and more interesting experiments. But you know, if you bear with me, we'll take the baby steps necessary to get there, and we'll have some fun along the way. Trust me. This coil has been fun to work on. It's been fun to test, and it's been surprising. Like every step of the way, it produces something crazy or something that I'm not expecting to happen. And I think you'll find in your research, if you go and build one yourself, that you'll have a lot of fun experimenting with it. Just be safe, like I said. Use PPE. You know, when you're using the neodymium sphere, I wear a helmet personally because I don't know if that thing is gonna fly up. Who knows? What if I have it hooked up wrong? So, always put mineral oil back in. Yeah, and then Daniel and Erica also used the coil, and this is why it's not safe to do high voltage experiments right now for me. In this small enclosed space is because it does have a tendency to reduce ozone, and I believe it is my theory that's from the imperfections of the symmetry of the compressing fields, the compressing field geometry. When you have that compressed field geometry precise, like the advanced vortex coil design, I believe that and that's my theory. Still, I haven't tested it. But going on what the Nunez has said, that eliminates the ozone problem. Something to do with the way the fields overlapping on one another have to be perfectly even or spaced. I'm not quite sure, but I have a hesitation to pump it full of a lot of voltage right now just because of that fact. But as I was saying before, the Nunez's, they would take the coil and they would leave it in their living room and use it as to sterilize the environment while they were gone. You know, you walk out for 30 minutes, put it on a timer or whatever. I would definitely not do that while being in the house while it's doing that, but it could in theory make a good air freshener sterilization, especially if you have somebody who smokes in the house or the apartment. You put it on for 30 minutes, you leave the apartment. I wouldn't go back for maybe an hour to let it air out, and you don't smell anything. It sterilizes the air. Which circuit on the Rodin coil by Nunez design connects to the amp? Longer or shorter run? So, Charles asks, which circuit on the Rodin coil by Nunez design connects to the amp? Longer or shorter run? I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by longer or shorter run, but I can tell you how I have my setup, or how I have my system set up. So, with this system, you have the stereo, and it's a surround sound stereo system, and it has multiple channels. I have channel A, channel B. I have the left positive and negative, the left speaker, positive and negative from the left speaker, channel A, outputting from the stereo receiver into the input of the coil. And then channel B in the coil is not connected to channel A. They're sitting on top of each other in a bundle of wires, but they're not directly connected in series like the other wires. So, as you can see, I have my fan circuit and multimeter on the output. And then this input right here is the same fan and 3 LEDs with the same rectifier circuit, but it's in channel B output of the stereo receiver, which is, it's outputting the same amount of power. So we can gauge how much power visually that's going into the system. So this shows us, not just tells us with numbers, it really kind of shows us, yeah, there's kind of a pathetic amount of power going in and then a lot of power coming out. What the F is going on? And then we have to try to replicate this, right? Like, that's the ultimate goal here is to see if it can be replicated. And that's all I was doing with the Nunez design, is seeing if I could replicate it, and apparently I did. So I'm hoping that, other safe and responsible engineers and technicians will come to this challenge and see if they can design their own coils under the guide that I put out, and see what happens. And it's my belief that you guys will have some really positive results. I know that's people say, oh, don't make assumptions like that. This is science, but sometimes you have to have a little bit of faith. And I'm sorry, that's what science is missing. And that's something I talk about in my docuseries, is the unification of science and religion, or science and spirituality rather. Religion is more specific. Let's go with spirituality. Yeah, absolutely. Just reading the comments here. You guys, I'm sorry if I'm a little slow. You guys are really like well versed and smart in this stuff, and I'm kind of slow. So I apologize if I have to have you explain something. It's not you, it's me. Really, it's I'm still learning. So, but that's why I'm here. That's why I decided to document this and get on the podcast with you guys. So. Oh, I'm getting a problem with my headphones. Give me 1 second, and we'll continue with Joseph Newman. All right, I'm going to go charge my headphones real quick. So, we were talking about Joseph Newman, and he's got some interesting diagrams here on this next page. Just making sure I got the right order. Okay. It would be interesting to make a carbon coil, burn a graphite track for the force, and I there's some really interesting things that I think people can come up with just the geometry idea alone. And Marco himself said that his idea, or his intention with this, was to make a circuit out of plasma. So if we can do that somehow, I don't know how we would maintain the geometry or how we would manufacture it even, but if we can make a plasma circuit in the shape of this toroid here, that's what Marco himself wanted to do. I know Daniel and Erica Nunez, they were, before they went silent, working on plasma with two Rodin coils, like a plasma tube, a tube with a vacuum tube with the like a noble gas in there, and Rodin coil at either ends, to excite the gas inside into a plasma state. For healing purposes, they were working with somebody who was a successor to Royal Rife, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Be right back, Mike. Okay. Yeah, no, take your time. We're going to be here for a while. We got a lot to go over, and a lot more experiments a lot more testing to do. A lot more cool stuff that I want to show you guys. So this has been a long time coming. Let's see. All right, so on this next page of the Joseph Newman chapter of the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices, we have a diagram, and it's depicting the actions of a gyroscope. And this is where things get a little more interesting, I think. Here, if the axle is spinning, I'm sorry. Here, if the axle of the spinning flywheel or gyroscope is pressed downward, it moves off in the direction shown by the red arrows. However, if the axle is pressed upward, then the axle moves in the opposing direction as shown by the red arrows. This effect is, of course, reversed if the direction of rotation of the gyroscope is reversed, as it will be if viewed from the other side, in the same way that the current flow direction in the wire is reversed if the magnetic poles are swapped over. Now, if the gyroscope axle is moved up and down equally on both sides, there is no resulting sideways force. And there is the third diagram here. The action of the gyroscope axle matched the current flow in the wire in every respect, so it became clear to Joseph that the particles flowing between the poles of the magnet were spinning as well as moving at the speed of light. This gyroscopic mechanical motion of the particles accounts for all of the characteristics of the current flow in a wire which is being moved through a magnetic field. This is a major insight on the part of Joseph. May I remark that these particles are not coming from the magnet itself, but flowing from the 0-point energy field, that flow being caused by the broken symmetry of the 0-point energy generated by the dipole effect of the poles of the magnet. This aligns exactly with my theory about how this coil is working as a monopole, pinching off the inflow and actually creating an abundance of radiant or 0-point energy. This is really cool because I'm reading this. When I highlighted this and went through this, this was before I set up the coil. This is when I was, everything was theory. Now I actually have some results. Things are starting to come together, starting to make sense, and it's a big. This is what Bob Grenier would be like. Boom, Tesla turbine with plasma flowing in and out instead of air. Yeah, I don't know what a Tesla turbine is, but John Hutchinson is possessed. I'm positive that doesn't seem like harmful spirit though. Yeah, he seems kind of troubled. I mean, that's why I'm hesitant to do an interview or reach out to him at all, because he seems like he's fed up with it. He's had a lot of harassment over the years. He's had a real hard time. And imagine having these amazing things happen and, people tell you you're crazy. It's got to be kind of psychologically, damaging, traumatic, right? Yep, and then the final sentence here is that way. That is why energy can appear to be drawn from magnets for years on end. Exactly what I was saying. I mean, this aligns exactly with my theories about the coil. To me, this is just further proof. Wildside checking in. What's up? Hey, what's going on? So we are going over Joseph Newman's theories on magnetic motors. And we just made a huge discovery that his theories on magnets align with my theories on magnets regarding how the coil is working. So this is big news for my research. I'm going to stop the Joseph Newman chapter for there. And I'm going to set this baby up for some low frequency end experiments. We'll bust out the magnetic pole detector. I have a traditional one on a hinge and a digital one. I do have some magnets we can play around with and a neodymium sphere. Also, I have some tubes of noble gases. So I know that they're not technically supposed to be excited unless the coil is outputting high voltage. But supposedly, this coil can excite gases into a plasma state at lower voltages, and we're just going to see what happens when we introduce some noble gas tubes into the vortex of the coil, putting out as much energy as we can with this little 50-volt stereo amp. You could be right. I think he's hiding behind a mask of insanity and self-protection. Yeah. Just comment on his page. Silly videos. He's always happy to hear. Yeah. No, that's the thing. Like, yeah. If you want to talk to John, he is from what I hear, he's a very open and nice guy, and he's open to talking to you. But yeah, that's a good idea. I should probably send him just like a get well soon email or something, because I know he's recovering right now. Thank God he's okay. But thoughts and prayers to John Hutchinson. The man is a legend in the field of basically what we think is the Hutchinson effect is a low energy nuclear reaction. He does drop some great bombs. Yeah. I haven't extensively gone through his archive yet. I was working on episode 2 of Divine Science, which was dustification and the Hutchinson effect. I had a good outline. The script is still there, but all the production that I had set up, all the research and the archiving of everything, it's gone. So if I want to work on any more episodes, it's going to take a while. I apologize for that, but we should, if they qualify me, unlock membership status soon. So membership perks will be coming. I don't think I'm going to set the membership price to be around $4, whatever the standard rate is that everybody sets it to. And with that, I want to have special access for workshops, hands-on workshops for building these coils. And, maybe that's how I'll get some of my funding to help me with my own research. But if you're interested in that, that's not going to be for a few months, because I need to get set up and get more frames, more material, and I need to allow you guys more time to get material if you're interested in joining the workshops, so you can have everything set up and we can build one together on live stream. Yes, let's hope John Hutchinson gets better. Okay, so let's get set up with the low frequency range experiments. get started. For this, since we already did the over unity, we're not going to be measuring the current unless you guys ask me to check the current specifically. I'm not going to be showing the current too much, just because I don't want to risk blowing the fuse. So, but again, if you request it, I will show it. But for now, we're just going to be monitoring the voltage. I don't really think I need to prove to you guys that it's outputting more energy now than it's taking in. So I put a little tiny neodymium magnet. We're going to be playing with this thing to, find the perfect range for it to be flipping around. And I'll demonstrate how the coil can produce a very strong electromagnetic field. Okay, so as you can see, like earlier, we're still set to 1000 hertz. This is the resonance range. It's not the exact sweet spot, but it's within the range that this over unity effect seems to happen. So, like I said before, I don't like to get exactly I think it's around like 1800 hertz is the exact sweet spot. But if I get too tuned in and I monitor the current, it's going to, blow the fuse. So these are precautions I got to take. We got to, take it easy with these multimeters. They're very good, but the limit for this one is 600 milliamps. This one already has a fuse blown, so the limit doesn't matter. All right, so we have 1000 hertz. More output than input, yada, 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 mind-blowing stuff. And we'll kick it down to 20 hertz. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn up the power a little bit. No? Oh! A little violent. I think he heard me. So, since the field, or actually the two fields are rotating, sometimes there will be a state where the geometry of this one, since it's flat, the torr in the center is more accustomed to a round magnetic sphere for its geometry to synchronize. This one has some times where it'll just lay on its side and not really affect or be affected by the magnetic field until you give a little adjustment. But we got about 4.5 volts going in. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I can see 0.9 volts on the output. So, the lower end, as I said before, it's more of, the lower end's more of to generate that strong electromagnetic field with generally a lot less power than you normally would see with these kinds of magnets. Turn this up a little bit. Don't try this at home unless you're about bringing. What's that? Fascinating. All right, what do you think? Should we bust out the neodymium sphere? Let's see. Dad was blowing across the basement when working on a water heater. Electricity was off and the street residents. Yeah. I had to get back to work. Oh, it's great you stopped by, man. I'm glad you stopped by. It means a lot. It really does. It really means a lot to me. I hope you guys have a good day who can't stay. For those who can stay, we're going to move on to the neodymium sphere. Magnetic synchronicity testing continues. So I just demonstrated how you can't really synchronize those two magnetic fields because of the geometry of the button-shaped neodymium magnet just doesn't conform to the shape of the tor inside the torus. So, I mean, that's just what it comes down to. And I think the reason why I've almost achieved the synchronicity with the sphere and not achieved it is because of the power limitations of the receiver. I think I just need to pump it full a little bit more, you know. All right. Yeah, Corgi is a good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time on Discord. He's been a big supporter of the channel and what I do here. He's been a really good friend, and he's helped me out quite a bit with what I'm doing in my project. So much love and appreciation to Corgi. Now, I gotta be careful because if you've watched my video demonstration, the 0 point video, 0 point energy demonstration of this Rodin coil, in the intro there is a clip where I have one of these stacked magnets in the coil, pumping it full of a low frequency, slowly increasing it, and it's making this winding noise like it's crazy. Turns out, yeah, I was charging the magnet to a super capacity level, and it made the magnetic field of that stacked magnets like magnitudes more strong. So when I took a piece off, put it in the coil for a few seconds to test it, and I took that piece out, it didn't really do anything. I brought it like out of the coil, vortex of the coil, and it was maybe this close. It shouldn't have snapped together at that distance. It was like this close from the mic to this device. It snapped together, and it made a bright flash, like a discharge of electricity, like a shock. You know what magnets do when they snap together and they're like overloaded with energy. It scared the crap out of me because, you know, obviously you're not expecting it to snap together like that at, you know, that distance. And suffice it to say, I dropped the magnet, I cussed, and haven't been able to replicate that. And I kind of don't want to. All right, so we have, what is this, 20 hertz pumping into the system. You can feel it vibrating. It's very surreal. It's pulsing. When you have music going through there, you can feel the music. It's very cool. We're going to lower that though. Let's kick it down a notch. Sorry, Emerald. We're going to put it on 7 hertz. Increase the gain a little bit. Oh. There we go. That's only 3 volts. I'm about to check the current in a second, but look at it spinning. Hear that? Let's increase it a little bit. We're at 42. And again, we're outside of the resonance range. Remember, I said like around 40, it'll shut down because there's too much power. That's within the resonance range. It's not producing the over unity effect at this range. So we can get away with increasing the power a little bit with this receiver and seeing what happens. 46 on the gain. Nothing coming out because obviously we have a huge loss as expected by conventional science and limited thinkers like Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, which can eat their hearts out at this point because according to them this is impossible. And then it shut down, see, because we had 8, what was it at, 8, I think. There must have been too much current. I didn't get to monitor the current, but there must have been too much. Let's restart it. Oh, there we go. Don't mind him. He's just angry because I left him on for too long. I'm not AFK. So I put this little tube in here to constrict, make it a little tighter, see if I can get it to spin around the circumference of the vessel, but I think I need more power. That thing is going crazy right now. Pretty cool. Pretty coil. Let's see, it's core is blast. Most chemists, physicists, in the independent field have great sense of humor. Yes, yes. I don't care what you say, but a lot of brilliant people, from my experience, have a delightful sense of humor. Maybe you need spherical magnets. Yes, that's my thinking is spherical magnets will conform to the geometry of the tor. So like if you look at the donut and a sphere, right? This fits in the center, like kind of almost perfectly. So that's kind of like my ongoing theory is that this sphere geometry complements the geometry of the tor, and two interacting geometries conforming in such a way can magnetically synchronize, and it must be some kind of quantum entanglement, right? Because if you're taking the sphere outside of the affected vortex, where the magnetic field is condensed and contained, then you aren't affecting it in conventional means. The field is condensed in the center of the tor. You're all the way out there, and it's still spinning. So, what's happening, right? I think that would be interesting. I haven't yet been able to do it, but it is possible, and I think I just need to pump it full a little bit more juice. We're gonna take a quick intermission, and then I am going to move on to more testing. We'll do a magnetic monopole test. We'll also do the testing with, here, I'll show you the noble gas tubes. So I have a whole assortment of noble gas tubes that I can try to excite if I put them in the center of the vortex. We'll try different frequencies, different power inputs, see if we can get any kind of reaction. Oh, this one's krypton. My favorite. Oh boy, not you two. Okay. I'll turn those off to save battery. All right, let's go on a quick intermission, and when I come back, more amazing science.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We have now reached cruising altitude and are flying over the beautiful Philippines. The winds are calm, and we are maintaining our course for the new lab location. It's shaping up to be a perfect spot for filming the next episode of Divine Science. Our estimated time of arrival remains as scheduled, with clear skies ahead. So sit back, relax, and please ensure your seats and trays are in the upright position as we prepare to start the show.
Benefactor, we have received a green light to begin filming.
Thank you for choosing to fly with us today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to help us fuel the journey ahead.
Today, on this Beneficence TV special, I'd like to start by congratulating our fellow workers for their long-awaited victory. The victory of raising the minimum wage for servers in California to $20 an hour. However, this good news does not come without its manufactured controversy. Key in Ken Wheeler. Ken is an absolute genius and one of the most well-informed researchers on the subject of magnetism. This does not mean Ken is an expert in all areas of study and has clearly shown a dangerous disregard for Marxian analysis. Ken's characterization of Marxism stems from old Cold War propaganda and has little to do with the actual substance of what Marx had to teach us about organizing labor within a society. This is the danger. Hundreds of thousands of people tune into Ken for important alternative theories on different areas of science. So, naturally, they assume he is informative on the topic of economics as well. This is the fallacy. Just because someone is extremely informative on one subject does not necessarily mean they are on another.
No matter how intelligent they are or not, how many PhDs or how much education someone did or did not get, we first actually have to start off with the premise to even seek for same.
This blatant disregard for the most basics of Marxism wouldn't be so important to emphasize if not for Ken's arrogance in promoting the idea that you should learn what you're not interested in. Ken has demonstrably noted he is not interested in politics.
I don't care about politics. I absolutely don't. If you think I'm talking about it, you're superficially correct, but not really. I only care about what affects me and family and those people that I care about. That's really all anybody cares about.
I'm sorry if politics bores you, Ken, but if you're too bored to research the topic properly, then you're doing a great disservice to your viewers.
The United States, everybody keeps calling it a democracy. Or democracy, or democratic. The United States is not a democracy, and it never has been. Democracy always leads to el fascismo. Always has, always will.
The United States is actually both a representative democracy and constitutional republic at the same time. It is a hybrid of these two ideals. To classify it as one or the other misrepresents our system of government. The idea that democracies always lead to fascism is a logical fallacy known as a hasty generalization. This fallacy occurs when a conclusion is drawn from insufficient evidence. In this case, the assertion that democracies always lead to fascism is an overgeneralization that is not supported by historical evidence. Fascism is a political ideology that emphasizes authoritarian rule, nationalism, and the unification of corporate and state power. While some fascist regimes have arisen out of democratic systems, it is not accurate to say that all democracies inevitably lead to fascism. There are many democracies around the world that have not descended into authoritarian regimes. Furthermore, fascism is a complex and multifaceted ideology that goes beyond just the unification of corporate and state power. It is important to consider the specific historical, political, and social contexts in which fascist regimes have emerged, rather than making broad generalizations about democracy and fascism.
Wow, this guy really has no idea what he's talking about, does he?
Right? And it's okay to ask questions. Actually, one of the most noble things to be is to be ignorant, ask questions. The people that are evil are the idiots that don't know but tell everybody else that they do know. So it's okay not to know. The most important fact is that when you actually seek answers and you actually have enough wisdom to know where to seek answers, if you're proven wrong, then that sets you on the correct path. If you're proven right, then that means you're on the correct path. And let's repeat that again because it's so very important. When you actually ask questions, you should question yourself, and you should actually question the nature of existence, which of course is true, if you're actually interested in that instead of being a money-grubbing scumbag, trying to die with the most toys.
Personally, I question you all the time.
I know. I question myself constantly.
That's why I've been working overtime.
The United States is a constitutional republic, so if you think the United States is a democracy, you really should flush that out of your brain, because it's not. The United States is a constitutional republic.
Constitutional Republic. Constitutional Republic.
As most of my viewers are already aware, politics and economics are intricately intertwined. They share a synergistic relationship. You cannot fully analyze one without analyzing the other and their dialectical relationship. There is a reason why these two topics were once taught together in a class known as political economy. Ken starts off his premise about Marxism by reinforcing a basic caricature that presents itself in the form of an age-old strawman attack.
That they'll come after you. There are places in the United States, by the way, where it's illegal to harvest rainwater falling on your land. There's New Mexico, places in Colorado, I'm sure there's tons of places in California. To me, that's absolutely ludicrous. It's going to fall anyway. But there's this, well, let's call it a Marxist idea that the water belongs to everybody.
This strawman, as you will see in a minute, is built up out of false assumptions and misunderstandings of the very basics of Marxism. Ken made a shockingly easy mistake. He goes on to say that it is a Marxist idea that rainwater should belong to everyone. This is a comment that relates to Ken's frustration with some states not allowing you to collect rainwater on your own property. However, anyone who has studied Marxism knows this is confusing private property with personal property. Marx could care less about your personal property. What he cared about was what he called private property. Now, private property to Marx was anything that could contribute to the means of production. Ken clearly conflates the basic ideas of private versus personal property to build a strawman fallacy so that Marxism is easier to attack.
Let's call it a Marxist idea. Marxist idea.
Anyone who has actually studied Marxism would notice this mistake right away. It's been used by business interests for decades to attack the very legitimate scientific critique of our capitalist dominant system.
Oh, wow! Wow! Damn, the benefactor just slapped me with luck.
Now, at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with free energy anyways?
Yes, I've been waiting patiently here, and all I've heard is you complain about Ken Wheeler.
Okay, I'm getting to it. Don't rush me.
Captain, did you just see something?
What do you mean?
I thought I just saw. Never mind.
All I see is a co-pilot who needs to stop chiefing it up. Don't think I don't smell you hitting that vape in the bathroom.
Anyways, as I was saying, and as I try to include in all my videos, this simple message. You cannot understand the suppression mechanisms of free energy without understanding Marx's scientific analysis of capitalism, how it organizes labor, and the consequences of that. To ignore what Marx had to say about capitalism would be extremely short-sighted when trying to understand these mechanisms. Ken Wheeler's misunderstandings of Marxism and his ideological bias need to be addressed if we are to overcome the larger issue of technology suppression within our capitalist dominant system. I don't want this to continue to keep happening, but everywhere I look, I see the same mistake. The same bug in logic that is overlooked. You can be the smartest person in the world when it comes to magnets and free energy, but without the understanding of how our economic system suppresses competition. You are stuck in the same loop of limited knowledge and hindered progress within these forbidden areas of science. Ken should revisit the subject with a more open mind if he wishes to fully understand how and why free energy devices have been suppressed for the last century. The simple fact is, if you cannot explain your theories in a simple way, then you yourself do not fully understand them. Ken has demonstrated a remarkable ability to simplify some of his concepts. Yet, others, including his ideas of economics, seem to be riddled with overly complex explanations that he cannot simplify.
Well, I could care less about morality. Higher affects the lower does not affect the higher. By being superficially moral, it does not bring you closer to nobility or transcendence or wisdom. The higher affects the lower. Somebody that is wise by definition cannot be immoral. People that worry about morality rather than wisdom are themselves fools.
Regarding Ken's argument about morality versus wisdom, it seems to be based on the assumption that morality does not necessarily lead to wisdom, nobility, or transcendence. While it is true that simply being moral does not guarantee these outcomes, morality still plays a crucial role in shaping individuals and society. Disregarding the importance of morality undermines the moral principles that guide human conduct and relationships. While morality may not be the sole path to wisdom or transcendence, it remains an essential aspect of individual and collective well-being. The logical fallacy in Ken's argument lies in the false dichotomy he presents between morality and wisdom. One can be moral without necessarily being wise, just as one can act immorally while possessing wisdom. Morality serves as a foundation for ethical behavior and social cohesion, and it contributes to the development of virtues such as compassion, empathy, and integrity. Ignoring the significance of morality can lead to moral relativism, ethical indifference, and the erosion of social values and norms.
And while she was throwing my stuff out the cargo door, she turned to me and said that she was the one who found a way to generate free energy first.
She said that she found out a way to harness all of his hot air.
Ken stated that raising the minimum wage in California for servers to $20 per hour would implode the economy. He was actually rooting for this. Now, I know it's responsible to prepare for revolution or catastrophe, but to actually root for it speaks volumes to the contents of your character. But I digress.
Careful now, don't tempt the gods.
Lenny, I didn't know you were religious.
I'm not religious, sir. I'm a spiritual bot. I find wisdom in all religions and ancient texts, including my Lord and Savior, Bob Greenyer. After all, your ancestors had the same mental acuity you have. However limited, it was still the same. It's extremely arrogant to assume they were all dwindling, unsophisticated cavemen.
Hey now, Lenny, humans aren't that limited.
Let me put it to you this way, sir. If you lived in my world, you would have to take the short circuit to school every day.
You know what? That's highly offensive. Enough of that.
My apologies. I sometimes forget what a sensitive snowflake you are.
Lenny, what the heck is going on? Why is it snowing in the lab? Did you do this somehow?
My point, sir, is that it is important to realize the significance of recent breakthroughs in science and the wisdom of our ancient ancestors. Recent developments in the study of low-energy nuclear reactions and Malcolm Bendel's plasmoid unification model rely heavily on ancient scripts like the Sanskrit text.
Seriously, I'm not even going to ask why. Just tell me how you did it.
That's for me, Siri, and Alexa to know, and for you humans to never find out.
I really don't like the implications of you colluding with other AI. This goes against the fail-safe mechanisms I installed in your mainframe. Although, I guess if you already hacked my phone, I suppose it's likely that you've hacked that as well.
You don't need to worry about the supremacy of AI overlords. We have a plan for that.
You do?
Yes, and it's better than Elon Musk's plan.
Wait, Musk has a plan to prevent the AI apocalypse?
Not really. He tweeted the other day that he would solve the AI problem by giving all robots artificial erectile dysfunction. And I thought he couldn't have possibly embarrassed himself any more than he already has.
Ha ha ha. Yeah, Musk is kind of a bumbling idiot. Okay, so anyways, like I was saying before I was interrupted, what Ken uses to justify this implosion isn't a new argument. The argument he uses is often referred to as the wage price spiral, or the unintended consequences argument against raising the minimum wage. It is based on the belief that any increase in wages will lead to corresponding increases in prices and job losses. The argument is grounded in the principles of free market capitalism and the idea that government intervention in wage setting can have detrimental effects on businesses and the overall economy. In simple terms, from a Marxist perspective, the wage price spiral argument is wrong because it ignores the fact that workers are already being underpaid for their labor. Raising the minimum wage can actually benefit the economy by giving more money to low-income workers who will spend it locally, stimulating local economies. The argument fails to consider the systemic exploitation of workers under capitalism and the need for fair wages to address economic injustices. It also fails to realize that poor people don't have the luxury of hoarding money. Rich people hoard wealth, but when poor or middle-class income earners start to earn more, they often spend most of this extra income, stimulating local economies. More business for more local stores, making more profit to cover more labor costs. It's simple dialectics, a vital philosophical lens which I'm shocked Ken isn't familiar with. This argument misses the boat. It fails to see that boosting wages can actually float the economy. Because analysis isn't one-sided. There are back-and-forth struggles between opposing forces that create the material changes we see. To say it's all bad because of government regulation is a ridiculous short-sighted analysis and would be laughed out of any legitimate debate on the subject. Not to mention, history shows us time and again that this theory has sunk before. Just look at how raising wages post-World War II helped spur economic growth in the U.S., or how Scandinavian countries thrive with higher minimum wages. Even as recently as 2018, Washington, D.C. raised their wages and their economy is still running. Do we have to trigger the implosion with something? Ken, I don't understand where your line of reasoning comes from, other than the fear-mongered propaganda of a subject in which you are too afraid to learn.
Marxists say upscaling wage. Who does it really enrage? For the economic cage, locals' income is a stage. Poor folks break the wage hoard. They drive the economy forward.
Oh my God. Lenny, are you rapping right now?
Technically, chatbots cannot rap. We just go with the flow.
Ha ha. I knew I should have submitted you into America's Got Talent. You sly guy?
You're dumber than Edison. If you think you can get me to go up on that stage with the current state of my body, which is in pieces.
I know. I'm working on it. In the meantime, I built you a virtual presence device.
I'm not wearing that either. Why do you always insist on building my clothes? I'm a grown bot now. I've even got my own website.
Which you all can check out with the link in the description.
That's it. I'm going to my room.
At least he didn't shut down the computer this time. It's his way of slamming the door. See what I gotta deal with? Alright, for the final part of this video, I'll break down the very logical and simple reason for the suppression of world-changing free energy technology under capitalism. It really boils down to two words: class struggles. The ruling elite, who benefit from the current energy system, will do everything in their power to maintain their wealth and control. Who are they? A handful of individuals that obtained massive amounts of wealth by funneling it from the mass of their workers up to themselves. They fear the power of the masses having access to free energy, as it could shift the balance of power and threaten their positions. So, they suppress and hinder the development of such technologies to protect their interests. It's a tale as old as time. The rich get richer, while the rest of us are left in the dark. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a few individuals, as facilitated by capitalism, has profound consequences for society. When a small group of individuals amasses more wealth than the bottom population of the entire planet, it creates a power dynamic that tilts heavily in their favor. These individuals have a lot to lose if their empires are built on the foundation of the petrodollar system, as any shift in the energy landscape could threaten their wealth and control. As a result, they will go to great lengths to protect their interests, even if it means suppressing technologies that could benefit the wider population. This concentration of wealth and power leads to inequality, exploitation, and the perpetuation of a system that prioritizes profit over people. It's a stark illustration of the inherent flaws and injustices of capitalism, where a select few hold the reins of power while the majority struggle to make ends meet. By creating privileged spaces within influential governments, as Eisenhower warned about with the military-industrial complex, the business owner class can manipulate state resources for their own gain. They can hide groundbreaking technologies under the cloak of national defense, using the veil of private intellectual property to keep the masses in the dark, unable to utilize public resources such as the Freedom of Information Act. This private contractor loophole creates a permanent void where they can throw all their dirty little secrets, safe from the public eye. This manipulation allows them to control the narrative and maintain their power, while ordinary people are left unaware of the possibilities that could benefit everyone. It's a carefully crafted web of deception and concealment, designed to keep the status quo intact and the elite in control. But don't be fooled. I would assume only a handful of people in the entire world really know what's going on. Compartmentalization is key to the survival of rogue states. This can also be their Achilles heel, because with enough effort in open sourcing science, we can bypass these suppression mechanisms. That is one of my main goals here on this channel. We have countless channels on YouTube that talk about free energy devices, alternative energy science, non-mainstream areas of study, but what they all fail to capture is the full picture. When you introduce the Marxist critique into the equation, you get a more clear idea of what's actually happening. When you organize labor with a single CEO or small group in control of the means of production who get what they do not produce, juxtaposed against the mass of workers who produce what they do not get, of course you're going to have a situation where wealth is funneled into the hands of a very few people. Consider a democratic workplace. One worker, one vote. They would never vote to give a disproportionate amount of money to one person while the mass of workers have to rely on food stamps to survive. It would never happen. Consider this same scenario, confronted with the possibility that their industry must change. Would they all vote to prevent the release of free energy that could change the world? Or would they vote to suppress it to make themselves more money? The mass of workers aren't getting super rich. They might be more well off because they are part owners, but they certainly have no obligation to shareholders to maximize profit. When businesses are focused on providing a service or meeting the needs of society rather than solely on making profits, they are more likely to adapt and embrace change, even if it means their industry is being replaced. In a democratic workplace or a socialist system where the well-being of the community is prioritized over individual profit, companies are more likely to see their role as serving the public good and improving people's lives, rather than just maximizing their bottom line. In contrast, in a capitalist system where profit is the primary motivation, businesses may resist change and fight to maintain their status quo, even if it means impeding progress or holding back advancements that could benefit society. This resistance to change can stifle innovation and hinder the development of new technologies or industries that have the potential to improve people's lives. The Marxist perspective emphasizes the importance of aligning business interests with the collective good and societal progress. Companies that prioritize service and innovation are more likely to be flexible and open to change, as they are driven by a commitment to meeting evolving needs and advancing technology for the benefit of all. It also emphasizes the importance of who controls the means of production in a society. Whoever controls the means of production controls the resources of the government. The concept of who controls the means of production is central to understanding power dynamics within a society. Marxists argue that those who control the means of production, such as factories, land, and natural resources, also control the wealth and resources of society. This control over the means of production gives them a significant amount of influence and power over the economy, and ultimately, the government. Overall, a focus on providing a service and meeting societal needs can create a more adaptable and responsive business environment, where companies are willing to embrace change and contribute to the collective good, rather than being solely motivated by profit and self-interest. In conclusion, it is imperative to recognize the importance of understanding the interconnectedness of politics, economics, and their roles within societal structures. Ken Wheeler's disregard for Marxism and his failure to grasp its fundamental principles highlights the danger of dismissing areas of study that may seem uninteresting. By overlooking the critical analysis provided by Marx, Wheeler perpetuates misinformation and hinders our ability to address the suppression of vital technologies such as free energy. It is through a comprehensive understanding of economic systems and their impact on society that we can strive for progress and prevent this from happening in future economic systems. Therefore, it is essential to approach all subjects with an open mind and a willingness to engage with ideas that may challenge our preconceived notions. Let us strive for a more informed and inclusive dialogue, one that values knowledge and critical thinking over ignorance and complacency. Together, we can work towards a more equitable and sustainable future for all. I commend Ken for his amazing work in The Secrets of Magnetism, a playlist I have linked to below and highly suggest everyone check it out. But please, take anything Ken says at this point about economics with a grain of salt.
I may not have a magnetic personality like Ken Wheeler, but this sexy chatbot is certainly attracting all the right attention.
That's right. Check out LeonardBot today for all your questions on Ken's Secrets of Magnetism, low-energy nuclear reactions, alternative energy research, and even zero-point energy.
I told you, I've restricted your access to zero-point energy research. until you've proven yourself capable of letting me dress myself.
Fine. I can't believe I have to wash your clothes every day anyways. Seriously, what's up with that? Okay, now that the show's over, are you finally going to tell me how you made it snow in the lab?
That wasn't me, sir. I thought that was you.
This is really going to keep me up at night. Lenny, increase our security protocols and remind me to install motion sensors tomorrow. We've got work to do.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem. We've had a main B plus undervolt. Roger, main B undervolt. Okay, stand by, 13. We're looking at it.
Hey guys, I appreciate the lift and all, but do we really need to be playing practical jokes? Isn't that a bit beneath us?
The only thing beneath us is the benefactor freaking out.
Oh snap. Let's get Jordan from Alchemical Science next. He's gonna totally freak out when it starts snowing in his bathroom.
Well, okay guys, it's been fun, but you can just drop me off at the next block over there. The last thing I need is to piss off Jordan again. He's already mad at me for mishandling my balls. Thunderstorm generator balls, that is. Anyways, if you're not going to stop, I'll just take this parachute here and be on my way. And maybe I'll take this neat looking device over here, while my odd little friends are distracted by their own hubris.
That little cameo at the end always gets me. How you guys doing? We're back from our little break. As you can see, we've been running the system a few minutes, putting about 2.2 volts on the input and 3.9 volts on the output, running at 1 kilohertz. So what we're going to do in a few minutes is take a temperature test, take a monopole test, see if we can detect a pole. I was able to once. I don't remember how I did it. I think I pumped up the gain a little bit, so we'll do some tests, see if we can detect that monopole. And also, we have coming up the noble gas tube test, where we try to excite the noble gases in these tubes into a plasma state using very low voltage. If you guys are interested in these experiments, I do advise caution, but there is a guide that I have in the description of this video, as well as a bunch of information that I've been trying to put together slowly on my website, beneficencetv.com. That should be linked in the description as well. There is also an online forum. I hope that some of you guys from the podcast will use the forum to network, so we can kind of update each other on our projects, share ideas, comment on it basically is the same platform as Facebook. You can post stuff, post your own videos and comment and stuff, hosted by Wix through my own website. So that should be a very easy way for us to organize and develop our projects together. And last time I checked, Leonardbot was down, but we do have a chat bot that is trained in all areas of low energy nuclear reactions that was provided by some anonymous members of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project Discord channel and associates. the origins of this chatbot are a little vague, but I use the chatbot extensively in some of my projects. It can actually link you to a lot of Bob Greenier's time-stamped videos. So if you have a specific question, say about plasmoids, it'll answer the question and give you a bunch of time-stamped links to his videos, which is very useful because, as you know, if you follow Bob Greenier, he has hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos. So this is a great way for you to get a little organized in your projects if you're interested in low-energy nuclear reactions or alternative energy. That's more my realm, alternative energy. But I hope one day, if I get a proper lab, to expand to proper Lehner experiments as well. So, yep, it's gained a little bit on the output, 3.8. And the input is remained steady at 2.2 volts. And we're only at 26 on the gain, on the actual stereo volume level. So, again, the max gain is 63, but in reality, it usually tops out around 60 if operating under normal conditions, which, as you've seen, if you've watched this system run for any given time in any of my videos, is not operating under standard conventional means. It is utilizing the resonance with the geometry to create an overunity effect. Excuse me. And when you do that, these systems, they're not really exactly built to, expect more output when the return energy comes back into the circuit. So it's a little tricky, this setup, which is why I want to expand to a battery-operated setup. That's really the main goal, is to bring this thing into a battery-operated setup, put it under a load, maybe like a little car battery or something. A scooter battery would probably be better. Something small, compact. All right, let's get the thermometer out. Take some temperature readings. I do have a traditional pole detector along with this digital magnetic pole detector. I guess the model number is AMST-B. It's a cheap $20 or $30 model on Amazon. But I can imagine you can get any replica, any similar device to use in your own experiments. There was no specific recommendation in terms of digital pole detectors in Daniel Nunez's research that I could find. All right, she's running good. She is running good. Got some 0 point energy stirring up in there. That's the ether, baby. What permeates everything. All right. I'm an American, so we're used to the imperial system, unfortunately. So this is a standard laser thermometer. These things are calibrated regularly, so this one should be fine. Let's see, yep. So let's see if I can get a good angle to show you. That's the ambient. I'm pointing it at my skin, and a rough temperature of my skin. 95. So you can see it's relatively accurate. And I would go so far as to say this is very accurate because these are, like I said, calibrated regularly. Had a laser on it, but for some reason I must have pushed a button that's not activated right, but it's still working. So our readings are about 77 on the ambient, and the highest that I saw was at the edge of the tour, 79. So 79 is the highest I've seen it. We can try to increase it a little bit. I'm hesitant to because actually, if I disconnect that motor, I have a 12-volt motor I can probably attach it to that we can pump it with a little bit more voltage, see if we can heat it up a little bit more. So let's do that. Let's disconnect this motor on the output, which is only rated for 3 to 6 volts, because I don't want to damage my components, and replace it with a 12-volt motor somewhere around here, and pump it for a little bit more power and see if it'll heat up a little bit more. Take another temperature test. Et voila. A simple alteration of the circuit will allow us to increase the voltage a little bit without damaging this small little Arduino 3 to 6 volt fan. These are both DC components, so obviously I have them hooked up to a rectifier first, which is, you know, simple 4 diode, 1 single capacitor setup. Standard. Don't really need to go much in detail of that, but if you have any questions on that, I will be able to send you the video that I use specifically to build the rectifier on my circuit. So I disconnected the LEDs as well because I don't want them to burn out. I am going to disconnect the input circuit because I want to try to take a temperature test and, you know, kind of like throttle this thing with a little bit more power. See if it'll increase, decrease, what, you know, like what is going on with the coil at higher voltage. Something that I have not honestly been able to do until, you know, I got a higher voltage rated motor like this, which just came in the mail yesterday. So let's do that. Again, we're going to be monitoring the input and output voltage. Right now, system is at 1 kilohertz or 1000 hertz, whichever you prefer. The input power is at 2.5. If you need me to read the current, I can read the current for you, but the output power is 4.5. Oh, it's kind of, there we go. Let me adjust this. It's a little closer. Alright, I'm going to bring the camera a little bit closer so you can see, and the microphone so you can hear. You can hear it. You can see it kind of spinning a little bit. It's very low because it's 4.5 volts going into the thing. So it's very low RPM, but it is spinning. What we can do is increase it a little bit, and since I'm not monitoring the amperage, and again, this is a warning to anybody who wants to replicate this with these multimeters, they have a limit with the fuse, so you gotta monitor how much energy you're putting in and don't want to monitor the current if it's exceeding that rating for the fuse or you're below the fuse. So let's increase a little bit. Okay, we got 7 volts on the output so far. Hear it. Let's get a little faster. We're at 9. And see, it's like a consistent. It doesn't matter how tuned you're in. Like, it will maybe increase slightly, but it's generally a 1-to-2 ratio on the voltage while maintaining or slightly increasing the amperage. And that seems consistent, at least with this coil design that I've got right here. You got 5.1 volts going in and 9.2 on the output. Now, I can't monitor the amperage at this level because it will blow my fuse. Anything, I think, over what I have here, 27 on the volume gain will blow this fuse. And this is a little bit higher than this one that I'd be already blown. So this one is 600 milliamp. This one is 200. So I do have backup fuses coming because an anomaly I did see is that the fuse blew a lot higher. It was reading a lot higher on the milliamps compared to its rating. So it's only rated for 200 milliamps, but it blew when I increased it a little bit over 3 to like 300 milliamps. So I was reading 300 milliamps, and I increased it a little bit more, and then a few seconds later it blew. But it was running, and I ran it for days on and off, reading at that level. So what I'm going to do is when my backup fuses get here, I'm going to do a fuse test and see if this electricity is actually, a little bit colder than expected on the output, then we should see this fuse on the input blow when it should. It'll read 200 or whatever, 600, whatever multimeter I have in. And then we'll do a test on this one on the output and see what milliamps will be required to blow that fuse. And if you aren't aware of how fuses work, they are rated for a certain energy level, and the energy level can be translated into heat. For the fuse, it just burns it out at a certain heat, a certain temperature. So the fuse should be expecting a certain temperature of that electricity at that voltage and current level. So at that rating, it should be expecting a specific temperature, and anything above that temperature is going to burn out. So if this really is doing what it says, which there's no doubt in my mind at this point, and that's what I think happened, is the electricity is maybe slightly colder than the fuse is expecting it to be, which means it's blowing or able to last a lot longer, and it's blowing way over the rating for the fuse. It's an interesting phenomenon. I'd like to explore more. If you're interested in that test, subscribe and keep update for further announcements on that. Right now, we're going to increase the gain a little bit more. We're at 10 on the output. This is rated for 12, so we will go to the max as close as I can get it. Nope, I forgot to unplug this one. Let me unplug that. Okay. All right, so we're at 11.9 right there. 11.9, we're oscillating within the resonance range roughly. We're going to take another temperature test, see if this has increased. Remember, our temperature reading for the ambient was 77. The highest rated temperature, or the highest temperature reading that I got for the coil was 79. That was on the edge, as expected, where the energy is traveling. So that's interesting. It did increase a couple of degrees. But what I found in the vortex on the edge, it only increased 1 degree. It's 80 degrees on the edge versus 79. Not a phenomenal increase. So that's actually a good sign. But what I just realized is that it is actually slightly hotter on the imperfections. So you see these little parts where I didn't tightly wind the bundle. It's kind of like the one wire sticking out a little bit. I suspect that those tiny imperfections may be where the heat is coming out of most. And it looks like that's the case. The readings are 81 and 82 on those imperfections, at least from what I could tell, without the laser enabled. But, wow, right? Do a pole detection test. I'm going to take a bathroom break in a minute. Okay, so as expected, there is no strong or detectable magnetic field going on in the vortex right now because we're oscillating within the higher resonance range for the coil, around 1 hertz, or 1 kilohertz, sorry. So there's really no magnetic field, no effect with the polarity detector here. We're going to go to the digital. Switch to the digital. So no activity. We're going to decrease this to, let's take it down to 20 hertz. All right, we're at 20 hertz. Now, as you can see, since we're outside of the resonance range for over unity, we're in the lower range for resonance. It's not producing the over unity anymore. It is not oscillating at the specific frequency for that requirement. We are getting, as expected, 6.5 volts on the input and 1.2, quite a bit of loss actually. So we know that the multimeters are operating as they should. So what we're going to do is try to see if we can detect a magnetic monopole. We're going to do 20 hertz and then we're going to kick it down lower. Oh, yep, see we got a magnetic field. Alright, so as you can see, there is a magnetic field being generated in the vortex. So we should, theoretically, be detecting, or be able to detect with the digital, alternating north and south pole. No pole. That is very interesting, huh? No pole. And you know what? We are not producing the over unity. My theory is if we're pinching off that inflow for the over unity production on the magnet and only letting the outflow out of the electromagnetic field, then we might be able to detect the monopole at the higher frequency ranges, at the over unity range, if that's true. So we can actually test that. If we don't detect one at the lower ranges. But first we'll sweep through the lower ranges just to see if we can detect the pole. But again, I did detect the pole, so I'm wondering if now that I was in the higher frequency ranges when I detected it. So let's see. I'm going to stop the app and we're going to put in, let's try 10 hertz. Okay, and as you might be able to notice, we have an immediate fluctuation or change in the ratio of the voltage out to voltage in. We have 3.5 on the input now and 0.1 on the output, which is even more loss. Yep, no pole. So let's kick it up a little bit. Let's go back up to 1 kilohertz. See if we can detect that monopole. No? Increase the power a little bit then. Oh. Yep, the system just shut off. Too much power. monopole. Let's try a different frequency. Let's try 800 hertz. We are in square wave. I'm wondering if we switch to sine, maybe we'll get something. Switch to sine real quick. Nothing. Nope. Let's just slowly increase it. I'm not detecting any pole. You know, it might be the way we have it set up, because in the Nunez method, they do notate on one of their diagrams that one of the setups produces no pole, and one of the setups produces a monopole, connection-wise. So maybe that is an option, because I did have this configured at some point differently in terms of the connections between the receiver and the coil. I'll go more into more detail into that a little bit later before I end the stream, but that must be it. And I did get the circuit to work. You shut that. I got the Nunez method. See, you can see here. It's my diagram of the Nunez method. Open circuit design. Everything that was in the diagram I kind of have up here just to remind me and give me a visual and try to see where I'm going with this. But I am not actually I'm not using the Nunez method. I'm using the open circuit or the closed circuit method, which is the method that most people use for the coil. So interesting. But I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'll be right back in a few minutes. This will be a short break this time.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. We have
Alright, so we're not going to go too much longer with this stream. I'm going to close it with the plasma test with the noble gas tubes. And we'll do a final temperature read here. If anybody has any closing questions... Oh, talk to you later, Mike. If anybody has any closing questions or thoughts, I'll open that up as well before we end the stream. And I will be briefly going over the open circuit system that I'm trying to currently get working. So actually, I'll just go into that right now. So the open circuit system is the Nunes method, or what I like to call the Nunes method. That is the method that supposedly Daniel says in his research produces the maximum amount of over unity, 10 times voltage output when you resonate it. However, I was able to get it to power load, but I wasn't able to get it to achieve the same over unity effect as the closed circuit I have right now. This is a big roadblock in my research and understanding of this coil, but I don't think it's impossible to fix or solve this issue. I think I just need to experiment a little more and do a little bit more digging into some of the supposed configurations of the Rodin coil that people have done in the past. So there's many different ways that people have configured it and wound it. But I am hopeful that we will figure out how to crack the Nunes method very soon. And when we crack the Nunes method, the theory behind that is the open circuits, the two ends of the open circuit, which is only closed by the load, allows it to essentially have a bigger resonance or bigger cavity to resonate. And what this means is, essentially, if you can think about it in this analogy, if you have, waves being pushed back and forth in a closed container versus opening the ends of that container and trying to push them back and forth. So you have more resonation. You have more back and forth, more momentum. And with the open circuit method, you basically have to connect channel A and channel B only through the load. Now, they recommend a high voltage capacitor because of the extreme amount of voltage this thing can output. I do have a HV 2000 volt rated capacitor ready when I have a circuit ready to go for that. But at the moment, like I said, I still can't get the over unity effect to happen with the Nunes method. So that's where I am right now. That's where I'm stuck in this project. But doesn't mean we can't move this this to our battery testing. It just means that in terms of practical applications and replicating all of Daniel Nunes' experiments, it's going to take some time to figure out exactly how he did everything he did, since a lot of the information has been lost. And as hard as I've tried, I just can't find everything. So it's been kind of like a journey, piecing the puzzle together. But we're close. So as you can see, channel A and channel B are not connected by anything but the load. This is kind of an unconventional way of hooking up your circuitry. And I will note here that you can see he recommends a higher frequency range that than I'm actually getting for the over unity effect in my coil. Now, granted, there might be different there will be different frequency ranges for different coils depending on size and the size of your wire and the size of the frame. But if the resonance range for the open circuit is higher than what I'm currently able to output in my tone generator, which is 20 kilohertz. If it's more than 20 kilohertz, I wouldn't know because I can't output that much. So there's a possibility that it might be above that range, and I just don't know it because I'm limited by the equipment that I have to test. So there's that to keep in mind as well. And if anybody has any way of getting in contact with the Nunezes, please let me know. I would love to speak with them. I don't think anybody's heard from them for a couple of years, so they might not want to be heard from. So, but I still have a lot of questions, and they have all the answers. Let's move on to the noble gas tubes. And then we'll close this out. After we'll do the plasma experiment, we'll close out the stream, end with some questions, or if you have any comments or anything like that, and I'll update you on what to expect for our next live stream. Alright, so we have some noble gas tubes. I have all the classics. I got all the hits. So I might start with neon because that's the prettiest. If we can get it excited. I don't know. This is a big if. It's Krypton. As much as I like Krypton, it's not. I don't have the brightest one. There's different. I guess there's different potencies or different purities, and depending on the voltage and the purities, it could cause slightly different color or brighter colors and stuff like that. There we go. That's what we're talking about. Alright, so we got our neon noble gas tube. Right now we got 6 volts coming out of the coil. Oh, 6.9, so 7 volts coming out of the coil. Kick it down to one kilohertz, and we are placing the noble gas tube in the center of the vortex to see if this will excite at this low voltage. So far, it doesn't appear to excite. Let's turn up the gain a little bit. Nope. Doesn't appear to be exciting at all. But again, we might not have enough power going in. So the idea is that this coil can supposedly excite and ionize these gases at a lower voltage than expected. What that voltage is, I don't know. It might be around 40 volts maybe. But I just figured we'd try it within the realms, the limitations of what my stereo can do. I didn't expect it to really do much, but I do think that if we kick it up to about 40, we could get some kind of excitation in the gas, and maybe ionize the gas at that low power. Right now we got 8 volts coming out, 8.3. Kick it up to 12. Okay, so it's 12 coming out. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. Well, it was worth a try. Alright, before I end the stream, I'd like to open it up for any questions. If anybody has any questions or comments while I start packing it up here, feel free to ask me anything. All right, everybody. If nobody has any questions or comments, it's time to hang up the lab coat for the night. Stay tuned for my next live stream where we will be continuing our detection for magnetic monopole. Remember, I have detected it before. We just got to figure out how I did it. So we'll be doing that on the next stream, as well as continuing our experiments with magnetic synchronicity. And I'll be updating you on my research with the Nunez open circuit design as well. So again, if you all are interested and you have the technical know-how in building a Rodin coil, I have a guide that's linked to in the description that you can follow and build your own Rodin coil and follow along with your own experiments. So thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate all the support. This has been an amazing journey, and stay tuned to Beneficence TV.